Hello, hello, hello. Let me just check to make sure my mic is plugged in. We got a little cat here. You can see her. Ina, Ina. She will be doing your reading. It's not Esme. This is a new cat. Little Ina. It's a double Aries, sun and moon. She is wild. Right now she's in her cute, calm vibe. All right, so I'm gonna do audio check. Oh, that's not test, test, test. Okay, cool. All right, I think I'm gonna get into like okay, let's share the screen. Sometimes I like to turn my camera off and just get into like a meditative flow. I like to do that when I start. I like to share. I'll share. Okay. Yeah, I'll just make this like an unlisted video because I just showed your full name. Actually, I'm gonna show my face. Oh, and there's one thing I need to look at that I didn't look at. Hold on. I mean, I did that. Yeah, yeah. Oh, nope. Okay, I need to pull up your Squarespace email. Okay. I keep blinking. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Oh, I love when I have I've actually looked at your chart. Um, this is the one, right? There's one because I teach astrology, so with my students, it's like one-on-one. Like I'll just like open my log and I'll be like, pick a random chart. Like let's pick a random one. Other ones that I either just did or the ones that I have to do. I'm pretty sure yours came up. Let me just remember. Maybe it didn't. Well, I can't seem to recall. Either way, I'll know pretty soon. Okay, so yeah, 0.42 Capricorn. It's the time of my birth certificate, and my parents are both adamant about that being my time of birth. Good, 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 good. It's so important, and I've had people come back to me who were had the wrong birth time. Please let me know. Probably through my parents' career and relationships, but okay. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for following me, supporting and all that. Really appreciate that. Okay, let's do share screen. So we'll have me over here. And do I need something? I don't want to like be slunched over. So I might put on this bean bag. It's all about comfort. Okay. So Taurus Sun, it's a very close conjunction, but it's not quite a Kazemi. But you have Sun with Mercury, and Mercury is retrograde. Interesting. So you got a 12th house Sag Moon conjunct Pluto. So you have no idea the amount of people that I do readings for who have this in their chart. It's insane. Um, Mathematically, the odds of someone having moon conjunct or moon square Pluto is very small. So imagine I get clients. I feel like the people who come to me a lot of times are like they're soldiers, like they're people who are very intelligent. Like this is kind of like my typical client, I've noticed. Very intelligent, very open-minded. Especially when I get people who are younger than me, like yourself, I feel like they just have like this great sense of destiny in their life and this eagerness to learn. So yeah, so it's very interesting. Like I can already feel this sort of like deep empathetic energy. Like this very. And it's interesting because you lack water in your chart. Is your south node water? Yep. Your south node's conjunct my sun. That could mean that me and you have some kind of karma together. This reading's not about me, but if I ever see someone whose south node or north node's on my sun, um, or like my moon or something, it's 1 degree away. It's on my Mercury, my sun. Perhaps we have some karma. Perhaps, I'm meant to tell you something very important right now. But obviously it could mean like a bunch of other stuff too. But the reason I knew that before looking is that like a lot of times when people like lack water in their chart, but then they have their south node in water, it means that your karmic what you're used to on a karmic level, like it's almost like I think of it as like you've overcome the water test karmic, like in past lives, right? That's about empathy, compassion, emotional intelligence, all that stuff. So um what I've observed in clients who have this is that whenever I explain, like first of all, a lot of times they make up for it. Like you have a lot of Neptune, yeah, Neptune square Sun, Neptune square Mercury. A lot of times they make up for it in different ways in their chart. Um, but like your moon's in the 12th house, for example, right? But then also in your moon's on Antares. Interesting. That's like one of the royal stars, one of the 4 royal stars at 9 Sag. But yeah, so like a lot of times like they end up like being like, yeah, like what, like that element is definitely like I do, like because like when someone has no water in their chart, sometimes they can feel like they lack the ability to like meet their own emotional needs or to feel emotionally, to get kind of deep into that kind of, I guess, you know dimension of life. But with a south node in Pisces, you are on a karmic level, you're used to being like you're used to being like I always call Pisces south nodes like the past life wizards, or I say mystics, right? But also um there can be some level of like Pisces south nodes sometimes, let me count it, they can have difficulty. Hold on just a second. Come on, cats. So they can have difficulty. It's like very much about the imagination. And sometimes in this lifetime is a Virgo North Node, right? Because the North Node is the sign and a house. Like you're here to take action. You have Mars and midheaven on your North Node. So you're here, like in past lives, there could have been a tendency for you to sort of be in this role of like the person that may have had all these amazing ideas, all these amazing plans, but not the firm footing in regards to how to get it done, the step-by-step basis, right? And I allow myself to have Red Bull every once in a while because it's just These flavors are these fruity flavors are so good. I have quick coffee, like as an everyday thing. Right now, I'm like full quitting it. So yeah, I let myself have it. I don't know. So how Red Bull doesn't have like a crazy effect on me. Like I don't really get like so fidgety after. I don't know, whatever. But anyways, yeah. So what was I just saying? What was I just saying? Oh, I lost myself. I lost myself. Yeah, North Node in Virgo. It's all about moving towards like it's about being of service, and it's about conquering like your health, like mental health, physical health, like really like it's like a clean energy, right? It's like because sometimes South Node and Pisces people there can be a propensity to have issues with self-esteem or issues with clarity as it relates to seeing yourself. And because your South Node's on the IC, there's also this degree of in this life at least, you're here to take risks on a public life purpose dharma type level. Um, because when Mars combines with the North Node, it's someone who's meant to be a go-getter. It's someone who's meant to be who's meant to move towards their goals, especially on the midheaven, right? Um, the issue, and we'll get, I'll circle back to this later, but just with Mars and Virgo in general, is perfectionism, right? It's like the bar is set so high for you. If you set your expectations can be set so high that can be difficult to kind of achieve like this. It can be like this very 100 or zero mindset, or like like where you're setting like very very hard goals for yourself, and if you don't reach them, which like they're overly high, you're gonna have days where you don't reach them. Going just the whole 100 or zero, right? Like if I can't get 100, then I fall to zero. So it's about having self compassion and about allowing yourself to fail when you need like not even just fail, like allowing yourself to have to not be so hard on yourself and to realize like life is not just this like there's bumps, it's not always pretty. But I think a Mars North Node person on the midheaven is here for to learn about perseverance. They're here to really really do it in this lifetime. Just do it. Now also with the houses, right? Like the fourth and 10th, there's a lot around foundations. Um, there's a lot around foundations, and I'm gonna get meditative a little bit. But yeah, so there's a lot of around foundations. And the importance of having a very like because like South Node on the IC and Pisces, like that can be like a karmic tendency to be too close to home, to not take risks on a public level enough, to be very much in your divine feminine, but like in this life needing to kind of focus more on okay, so you have all these amazing goals, right? Now how do you bring them to fruition? What are the actual steps needed for that to happen? um and how can you not beat yourself up, and how through the achievement of your goals can you see yourself more clearly, right? That's like a big thing about Pisces, like in Virgo axis in karmic astrology, right? um Hold on, hold on just a second, sorry. Sorry. I have to answer this. It's like a super important message from my mom. I just have to answer this. I'm nearly done. Sorry. Okay. Okay. So so yeah, with you as a like we'll revisit that stuff, but for you as a Capricorn rising 0 degrees, Sag moon, 12th house on Antares with Pluto on it, and then there's a Taurus sun, 5th house. The concept of like when you think of like a Taurus sun Sag moon's got to be such an interesting placement because Tauruses are so laid, like they have like Taurus sun makes the idea of staying present quite easy, a lot easier. But then being a Sag moon like I am too, that's probably why, we that's probably why we we would get along well, and, probably why you resonate with my content. Also, the karmic thing is crazy. Like that's wild. But yeah, like I think that's a big aspect is like the Sag moon can make one a lot more future oriented. So how does one find that balance, right? Between like the highest vibe of Taurus is just being present, just being happy and in that Venusian energy. But then like the thing about Taurus though is that Taurus is a sign that doesn't like change, but Sag Moon makes someone need change, right? Like they need life to feel like this exhilarating kind of place where they can grow a lot, right? So that's just an interesting combo. Um, because I think like I was saying, like the Taurus part of you could like it just emphasizes the importance to take those risks, um, to not get too comfortable, not be too much in um the comfort zone because that Sag moon, the moon is what we can't, it's what we ultimately truly need for our own happiness. And you know, it's just very, very hard to move past that. Um, so Sag Moon needs freedom, but it's like I always like to kind of bring it back to parts work, right? Like in psychology. So it's like if there's a Taurus part of you, which also, it trines the Mars Virgo North node. So it's also like the karmic destiny is linked to like this stabilization, this this kind of harmony within yourself, right? That's what Earth is. It's being able to be consistent, right? That's another thing about Virgo North Node, South Node Pisces, is that you're trying to move away from being inconsistent, and you're trying to move towards being able to be consistent day to day, you know, and creating a life for yourself that just where you're able to kind of wake up and kind of have a similar energy day per day. So I believe that that would be kind of the trick with that combination of sun and moon would be that, like, making sure that the Taurus sun isn't getting too comfortable with, I guess, staying the way it is. Um, with things like different things, different people, like of course it's great to be happy with what you have, right? Of course. But what can happen with Sag Moon is that Sag Moon people can get very, very unnervy, fidgety, restless, when they feel like life is not bringing them adventures, like when they feel like things are getting stale. And it's the same thing in relationships, right? This is all reflected in your relationships, is that, Taurus, Sag, and of course we have to add like the Venus and the, like look at Juno and all these things that relate to romance, which I'll get into. But really, everything is going to that Virgo North node. So the Taurus, the Taurus side, so that's kind of the karmic energy, is that like you haven't you in this lifetime, like you've done all, like you're very creative, you're very empathetic, your soul has done a lot, but there's just been that lack of solidity, lack of balance and consistency, and you're trying to get that right in this life. So how to make that work with Taurus and Sag? Well, with Taurus, it's about accepting that Taurus energy um is very good at feeling comfortable, and because it's good at feeling comfortable, it can get a little bit complacent, and then that comfort can turn into something that is negative if it's like leaving the person too happy with what is and not moving towards growth or change, because right. So it's working with that, understanding that's a part of you, that you're here to mirror that for other people, for yourself, right? And it's a fifth house Taurus sun, so it wouldn't surprise me if you were some kind of very artistic, creative person who, whether it's in your work, um, is trying to have like a very deep creative destiny. But then there's another part that's about adventuring, and the fact that to be someone who's creative, to be someone who, like, your Sag moon gives you this deep need to have new ideas of what truth is, right? Your idea of truth is always evolving. Back to what I said earlier about feeling stale. That will come if you're so, like, Sagittarius moon is all about traveling. It's all about traveling physically or traveling metaphorically, meaning learning different philosophies, different worldviews of different people, that then help challenge your own. So Sag moon, the best thing to do is to stay very open minded and always have the energy of I know nothing, right? That's what I do for myself, right? It's like I always like want to know, because I know that Sag moons are shadow side. Well, there's a couple of things. One of the things is like being overly indulgent, overly sure of ourselves, and then we take too big of risks, and then blah blah blah. But another part is like um just just being too like being almost dogmatic because it's like a sign that's linked to like free speech and all these things. But it really does because like Sag moons, we spend so much time, especially yours is in the 12th house. So it's like, that could sometimes that 12th house moons like have like difficult, relationships with their mother, or like they didn't receive like the nurturing, but like a lot of times they just really need alone time to process things. Like they're very deep souls. And um with Sag, yeah, so it's just like not trying to push your own philosophies on other people too much, and not just like believing something like at face value. Like for example, I'll give you an example of something I do that I think is that I would consider like a high Sag thing. Like even if I don't agree with someone, like I'll still hear them out, and I'm always willing to admit when I'm wrong. Um, even though one could say like I do know a lot of things, or I could say that, like I still understand that even if I'm talking to someone who, if I'm being honest, I don't think has that much to offer. I think everyone can offer in different ways. Sometimes it's like in a negative way, of like, okay, like this is teaching me about humanity, this person, like so there's always things to be learned. And the more that your worldview expands, the more that I think that like that Taurus side is gonna wanna take risks, but you do need to have this like comfort, right? So it's really about balancing those two archetypes out, Jupiter and Venus, which, what beautiful planets to have is your sun and moon ruler. And there's a lot of parts of your chart that are really helping out the Taurus part, right? Your ascendant is Capricorn 0 degrees. So 0 degree ascendant is someone who has like this lifetime is very much there's a lot of trial and error. There's a lot of like new beginnings with Capricorn energy. Saturn ruling your chart from the fourth house in whole signs. A lot of times that would speak to early restrictions in life. So you're not your Saturn return yet, but um it could, and does it square anything? No. It could sometimes show up as like Sag moons, like when it comes to emotions. I feel like I said, we're very future oriented. Um, like very internally optimistic, very internally glass is half full, right? It's that kind of energy. So it really affects us badly. Like we don't like being around people who don't believe everything and anything is possible. Like, but that's another thing is that Mars and Virgo, it can be a nitpicky energy at times in different people's charts, right? And that's another one that I consider a difficult placement potentially. Although I've noticed that it's harder. I've seen males struggle with a Mars and Virgo more than females for some reason. Um, but yeah, the way to defeat that is self-compassion and getting past perfectionism. So that's ultimately what it's all about. Um, and like as a Cap rising too, first of all, the amount of like beautiful women that I know who have Cap risings. And by the way, just so you know, I don't know what you look like. I purposely, by the time I get to every single person's reading, I've forgotten. Well, I feel like because what's funny is that some like three people in the span of when you booked yours with similar names to you, like in the sense like um they're from like similar like countries like near well actually here's this is Johannesburg, but yeah, just like that last name, right? Like kind of like Eastern European sound. Like I had a lot of those, so I purposely want that to happen because I don't want to give a reading that is based on any prior experience. Although I do like I kind of recall you, and I do recall you in my comments, but like still, I try to like forget that because like I don't want to have any image. Like I don't want. I just want to like say what I see in the chart, and then you tell me how it reflects your life, right? Because I didn't check if you had the follow up. I will in a little bit, but I think you did. Actually, I'm not sure, but yeah. So Capricorn rising people are very it can also add to this like perfectionist streak, but everything in life gets better um after the Saturn return is a big release point, right? For that energy. Big release point. And when it's in the fourth, let's go back to camera on. So when it's in the fourth, it can be like inner restrictions that can come from like not really feeling that supported early on. And it can make one kind of like feel like a lack of a firm footing in life, right? Um and they have to like really it's I released a video um before doing this that was really on point with your chart. I would definitely watch that. The parts where I talk about like foundations and the importance of having, because it's totally with your south and north node, right? Um, Having something in your life that feels like a metaphoric home, right? That's just like super important. Um, so yeah, you're really trying to kind of like work hard to create this solid base for yourself. And a lot of that can come from your moon conjunct Pluto. So that's called a Hades moon. Um, like I said, so many of my clients have it, and it's like think of it like it's like a super jet, like just extreme like light speed, like boom, um, in respect to a spiritual journey, but it makes someone go through crises early on, often via their mother, who they might have a very karmic relationship with, and they may it could be like a overly interfering mother, or just like a mother that, and I don't really like to call the moon and the sun mother and father, because I've seen too many times how like it just doesn't align. But like I think of the moon as the early nurturing, right? And one of the parents most likely wasn't, like was there, what it was, it could have been there, but maybe not in the right way. It's tough to tell, right? So even though you lack water, Pluto on your moon will make you a very emotionally intense person. Lots of like highs and lots of like very extreme highs, extreme lows, right? Um, but the Hades moon, that's like that could be like a generational curse breaker. That's what I've noticed in my clients. I literally just had two that had like the follow up, like I do like the follow up in current astrology with most people, right? Um, okay, you got just the reading. No. Recorded plus separate live. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I gave you got the deal, the good deal. Um, I literally just talked to these people who had you know, Hades moons, and it was all like they're like you were spot on. Like the mother was like super emotionally disruptive, and just like both of them had to, was it, yes, it was two, but I had another one like not too far before that. They've all had to create emotional boundaries with their mother. I found that interesting, and that was like a big breaking point for them. But yeah, like so when you have that, and these people have the square, you have the conjunction, so the conjunction will be easier. Um, but overall, it's just it's like you experience the darkness that can lead to the transformation, the death rebirth transformation, earlier on in your life than most people. through a very karmic setup for a very so it's like a lot of healers, people who are really, really meant to help others and to give back to the world in their own way, have this. And that's the reason why. It's because through tough times we build resilience. Through resilience, we are able to help others, right? Once we because we've had to devote a lot of energy to helping ourselves. Now, I want to go deeper into this on a psychological level because a lot of it relates to control and power, right? And also a lot of it has to do with regulating when one does drop to very extreme mood, regulating, okay, how do I make it so, like what and this goes back to the North Node in Virgo, because Virgo, if you recall, it's about day-to-day life, right? It's about your daily routine. So how do I have a daily routine? Like what am I eating? All that stuff, right? That could set me up for success. In this sense, right? That can set me up like healthy habits. But yeah, so a lot of times people with this will have like a emotional manipulation, like usually it's from the mother, overly controlling, a mother who just like has some kind of like issues psychologically, something that sometimes they feel like they had to be their mother's mother. Um, although, and there can be a lot that's taken on from the mother. So one has to sometimes separate themselves on some level. If that's the case, in order to see, this is me, this is mine, and this is my mother's. So it creates a lot of internal power. And the fact that your moon is Sag, it gives you a lot of perspective, zoomed out perspective of all this kind of like inner intensity. So you're able to understand it better and have a more optimistic energy. But yeah, this does make you have kind of like Haley, my Moon Girl readings has this same moon as you, and Pluto on it. So it definitely creates a Sag moon, but then there's that emotional intensity that's more like Scorpio. You see what I'm saying? So like that's what I always say with those conjunctions. That's like it's like a Scorpio slash. It's like a Sag moon with with some Scorpio in it, right? Um. So yeah, I think that it creates someone who just has a very powerful subconscious mind and lots of power for transforming their life. They become like nearly like really like it's very, very good for psychology and like learning. It's like really like forces the person to self-analyze and get to know themselves on like a deep level, right? To understand their very unconscious tendencies. Where does this come from? Why do I do this? Right? Stuff like that. Like things that are deeply buried, right? So like astrology, meditation, looking at your dreams, journaling, past life regressions, all that kind of stuff is really, really good for people who have Sun or Moon Pluto. It's a very like witchy kind of placement, right? But like when you set your mind to something that you're emotionally attached to, like Pluto gives this deep reservoir of power, like this ability to like really, really, really just keep going. And almost like it can be like this obsessive energy, right? This like this potential to always never be knocked off your feet. Like, yeah, you can get knocked down, but you like just keep getting up and nothing can like it's like that Scorpio energy, right? That Scorpio where it's like you can never kill a Scorpio. That's with Pluto. But a big thing about Pluto, and this is when it goes from being a burden to being a good thing, it has to do with letting go. Um it has to do with letting go and being able to surrender to the universe and not play victim and not roll over and not exercise your free will in a positive way, but understand that certain elements in your life were fated by your soul in cooperation with your spirit guides in order to make it so you could get to some evolutionary point that is very high. Only advanced souls have Moon Pluto because it is really, 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 really taxing, especially early in life. But what are the odds? 1997, and you're coming to me. I always say, like I said earlier, my young clients are people who have a real, real depth to them. Always special people, always, because a lot of times people come into spirituality and things like astrology and whatnot later in life. So there's, yeah. And I just keep looking at this chart and seeing like for example, I see a lot of things, but like with the cap rising, I think that like there's this energy of moving forward and being pushed back by the universe. And that's like the first 29 and a half years, right? This before the Saturn return. But just the more that you keep getting up, by the time you get to past your Saturn return, like into your 30s, you'll notice that a lot of things will stop being like, what the fuck is the universe doing to me? Like why does it feel like every time I take a step forward, I get pulled 2 steps back? Or like something like that. Or I take 3 steps forward, then it's 2 steps back. Like what the fuck? Where's the balance? It eases out. Saturn always gets better with time. But yeah. And there's just like a bunch like Jupiter and Aquarius in the second. That's a very good placement for money. But Uranus also in the second can make money go up and down. But like Jupiter and Aquarius people are very like I always say it's like the financial guardian angel placement in the sense that get my nicotine. Hold on. Fridge. So yeah, like I've talked to so many clients throughout the years where I've been like, Jupiter second house is linked to creative, or not creative. It's like a financial guardian angel, and I'll give an example because I've said this to people. Full disclosure, my 2 vices. So I guess Red Bull wouldn't be a vice because I don't drink it that often, but whatever. But anyways, so I said this to so many people, and they've always been like, "Yep, yep, yep." Jupiter in the second house, I call it the financial guardian angel because I believe that certain people have a lot of money karma. There's money lessons in life, right? There's lessons that money teaches us. Certain people are not meant to go through that, right? Um, they have other things to focus on, right? Also, one thing with that, going back on Moon and Pluto, you have to watch out for addictions too. And like escapism, like the negative kind of escapism, and trying to direct it into your 5th house sun and Taurus, which is really having strong creative outlets. So I just want to add that in there. But yeah, Jupiter's second house is definitely very, very good for like I always say this example, and then people like once I said it and someone was like, this is exactly what happened to me. I was like, nice. But it's like you have a really a good job that you got through some kind of like I don't know social networks through a friend or something. It's good, it's not great. You lose it, you wait 2 weeks, or not wait, like you kind of just like go on with life, whatever, things go on, life goes on. And then 2 weeks later someone like messages you, hey, my company is hiring, um and it ends up being better pay, better work-life balance, the people are cooler, right? That's kind of like the energy, like when I've met lots of people who have that, they're like, yeah, like it feels like doors just kind of open up, and that realm of life. And remember that it's an Aquarius. So Aquarius is about a lot like technology, inventiveness, but it's also really about humanitarianism, right? So a lot of Jupiter Aquarius people are very interested in helping others, and um yeah, so it's really nice in that area, but they're also very good at being outside the box in terms of their thinking. Now, having just that whole Uranus and Jupiter conjunction, people who have that, it's like it does create like a very like not afraid to be yourself energy, but that can be running in conflict, and that kind of goes with that Sagittarian freedom, right? But that can kind of run in conflict with the more traditional nature of your earth placements. You have an earth placement in each earth sign, right? Capricorn, Taurus, Virgo. So just understand that there's these, these two different parts that both need to be attended to. Um, but yeah, just like Jupiter, so with Uranus, it can be like a revolutionary, someone who has a very special purpose, someone who is, totally okay with being themselves, but doesn't need to, flaunt it. Like they're okay with being. One second, I have to let my girlfriend or her friends in. Hold on. Hold on just a moment. Yeah, so that's just the like when you have a lot of earth, that's always the battle. I mean, it's really good for consistency, showing up each day with a similar type of energy, but then the difficulty is like um the perfectionism aspect of it and holding yourself to too high standards, and then kind of burning out, overworking, stuff like that. And a lot of times Capricorn rising can have had like a lot of responsibilities, which could have been the case. Sometimes I've seen people who had that moon position feel like they had to be their mother's mother, or they had to like kind of be their parents, like um so yeah, definitely a lot of karma related to that. um but then back to what I was saying with the second house, that's like your values, right? So a Uranus second house person would usually have value system that's very like unique. um they can be very minimalist when it comes to money. Like, yeah, Jupiter creates that expansion and that very positive energy, but sometimes there can be like this sort of up and down, especially if one is like not doing what they're supposed to be doing, in the sense of like something, you know, that's too based on the ego. And some people are meant to be doing different things, right? Different careers for different periods of time. But there would definitely be this urge to help out the collective and help out the world, and be doing something that is very like like on a universal level, it's helpful. So what else can I say? Yeah, so it can create sort of like this interesting mix of like expansion, but also like unpredictability when it comes to income and spending and stuff like that. Um, and yeah, usually like an unusual approach towards like money. And a lot of times they can see like the bigger picture in that respect, and see like the life that people are telling them that they should live as being very limiting, and they want to have a life where they have this freedom, which is very in line with the Sag moon. But then you see how I'm going back with like the Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn, that wants consistency, that wants a certain level of of foundations in life, right? So yeah, it can make like it can kind of have like a bohemian feel to it, where the person wants to just have, you know, freedom in their life. You know, they value freedom. They value freedom of speech. They feel alive when they're able to just like not be held back by things. So that's interesting for sure. Now Neptune also, you have it at 29 degrees. So it rules your south node. So I have no doubt that there's some past life wisdom, mysticism, with the, with Pisces being your south node, and a lot of times, first house Neptune, it does bring back that energy of like wanting to take what's from the imaginary intuitive world and impose it into your everyday life and into your identity. But it's interesting that you have 0 and 29. So it's like, yeah, it's in Capricorn. So whenever I see that kind of energy, I always think of like someone who wants to turn their passions and what they enjoy doing into their work, right? But also when it comes to self-expression, it can be difficult to, and like boundaries too, right? There can be some difficulty with boundaries. And you know, just like this kind of chameleon energy that can come out. So just that's why I think like as a 12th house moon, there's that importance of alone time. Um, because like I said, with the South Node and Pisces, there is that kind of fantasy world that one can live in. And it's really important like who you surround yourself with, um, where you live, where you work, all these things, right? So really being able to clarify for yourself who you truly are, um, understanding that different people and different energies, locations, whatever, like those have an effect. So that's why, like when I talk about alone time and reflection, you're able to really see, okay, this is me, right? Like this is me, this is not me, right? So that's very important. But like, yeah, like the Pluto 12th house is so crazy. Like people a lot of times with that have just like the most intense spiritual experiences. A lot of times it can come in their dreams or meditations. Um, and I always say that like that's like one of the most spiritual placements one can have, because one, like, it's almost like, I just was talking about Carl Jung, um, how he spoke about, he would take these deep trips to the like the dark unconscious, right? I don't know how he was doing that, if he was using mind altering things, or I don't even know. But he said that the only thing that really brought him back was that the fact that he was a doctor, the fact that he had a family, that he had these very firm foundations of identity. So that's really, really important. Um, but yeah, there could be that kind of interplay between like the mystical world and, get more comfortable. The mystical world and the kind of more real world, right? But Pluto in the 12th, people at some point in their life, they're meant to really, I always say, like, jump off, like Saturn represents rocks. So I use this metaphorically. So it's like jumping off the cliff, and Neptune represents like the great ocean. Everything is interconnected, right? So it's like really, really like letting go and jumping off that cliff of Saturn, of like the consensus reality, what, the material world, all that, into like the never ending energy of Neptune. How does one do that? Well, through creativity, through deepening themselves spiritually, through really, 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 really like breathing their own very, very unique path in life. Um, and taking risks, which like I said, a Sag moon is good when it comes to that. So yeah, that's kind of like one of the the things in this chart, the big themes is like is 1 foot in like the physical world, 1 foot in like the metaphysical, like with the North Node in Virgo, because there could be a tendency to kind of be very much in the metaphysical, which is really good, but it's about finding a way to do that in a practical way, right? In a way that's where you're not just living in like kind of like a perpetual dreamland of like what could have been, and you're really, really opening yourself up to like service to other people and taking all these past life skills that you've accumulated and not daydreaming about like when it comes to them, because like a lot of times South Node Pisces can be like feel very overwhelmed and kind of shut down, and really like taking all that compassion, that wisdom, and putting it to like finding like a very, so it could be like someone who's meant to be like some type of a healer, um especially with the moon Pluto. Like I always see that in healers charts, right? Because like I said, they have to learn about kind of the darker side of humanity early on. So, and the fact that it's in the third and ninth house also is about developing the higher mind, right? And that's why you're a Sag moon and your North Node, well, ninth house in whole sign, 10th house in Placis. But like, you're really trying to learn about like it is also like the balance of like home life and outer life, feminine and masculine energy. But then it's also about like going out in the world and discovering meaning, like deeper meaning, whether that's traveling different places, being in different like people with different worldviews, and just like allowing yourself to just kind of change in that way. Take this out. Wasn't satisfactory for me. So yeah, like it's just interesting. When I look at your fifth house, I always think when I see Earth fifth house, I always think like it goes back to the idea of like how does that person make what they do on a creative level, or on like a fun, like their passions, how do they make those their career, how do they make those like, because the fifth house sun, like you're here to have fun, you're here to let go a little bit, right? But it's really that interplay between letting go and still having structure. It's like disciplined fun, disciplined creativity. So with Mercury retrograde too, very, very interesting placement. Only I think like what, like 15% of people have that or less. Um, a lot of times the individual is very, very, very right brained. Like but like the fact that's in Taurus, um, it definitely gives one an ability to have like this logical mind, and then have this very like I guess more like like being like sometimes Mercury retrograde people, when like they're in their early school days, have trouble because they do tend to think in like a non-linear type of way, and they can be very, very like analytical, and like in the sense of like sometimes they can like overthink things. But like on a karmic level, what's really interesting about it is that the mind either like not like Mercury's the brain, the thinking. So it's like there's either like some like overthinking, over talking, or underthinking, under talking, right? Like karmically, or and something with like the thoughts. And I always think it relates to potential self-limiting beliefs, which would make sense for the South Node Pisces. So it's like the first start of the life, it's usually like you're meant to kind of like analyze your own thought processes, right? And I would say with South Node and Pisces that tendency could have been to like I said earlier, like be too much more in like the not following through on the dreams and goals and stuff like that. Um so yeah, really, really detailing like what those are. And then you have the fifth house Venus, which is also conjunct the sun. So that definitely, that like Sun and Taurus conjunct Venus and Taurus, like will usually give beauty. Um, a very like nice aura. But then like having both those conjunctions, there's like with Mercury, it's like making sure, like I was saying earlier, that you don't over identify with your thoughts, right? Um, making sure that there's that separation, because like dogmatism, like I said, as a Sag moon, can be kind of the shadow. Um, so just understanding that, yeah, that like let's see, you have, yeah, just the more that you can see the big picture, the better. The more you can slow things down, get a different perspective, the better. And fifth house Venus people, like they're just like it just gives like a lot of artistic creative ability, right? It's also very good for children. Um and just like really like this urge to express yourself in like an artistic, creative type of way, right? And 1 second here. I'm gonna run to the bathroom real quick. Pause. All right, I am back. Um, so yeah, like fifth house, like so all this fifth house energy, like I think of it as like the idea of authentic self-expression, right? Um, and just like the mega importance that being able to figure out avenues in your life, outlets that you can basically, like there's this massive creative urge, right? Whether it's painting, whether it's journaling, whether it's writing poems, whether it's doing a number of things, it's about getting the internal energy out in some type of way that inspires you. And you have lots of past life talents, right? You have this real like like I wouldn't be surprised if you were like an amazing artist or some type of deep mystic. Like you have all these things, so it's about like being able to go deep into them, like. And that's why I think meditation and dream work and all that can be so, and like even like manifestation, like that kind of stuff, I think like you can be really powerful in that regard, because you have this really deep connection to your unconscious mind. And it's just about being able to get past that earth energy, which can sometimes be a barrier of allowing our thoughts and our everyday, like there's like every day there. And this is another thing about the Virgo um Pisces, right? Is that every single day, I'm gonna connect to my headset here for a second because I want to lay back.
Okay, so every single day there is always reasons why um I'm looking for a good backrest this time. If I use this one, so much better. There's every single day there's a million reasons why one can be anxious, why one can allow something to kind of like get in the way of their feeling of the oneness of everything, right? That's what Pisces is. It's like feeling that oneness. But our thoughts, so when we're thinking in a linear way, right? Like you with your Mercury retrograde, your mind is meant to be non-linear. So that can also create issues living in a world that's very linear, right? And that goes back to the need for alone time, the need for different people's philosophies and different people's worldviews, right? Because it all adds to yours and then creates this massive buildup. And then you're like, okay, I'm taking this. And that's why I like earlier I was talking about like what I'll do, like let's say it's like a public figure who's like talking about lots of things. Instead of doing what most people do, which is just like black or white thinking, like this person's good or this person's bad, I'll listen to them before I form my opinion, and I'll just like hear them out. And let's say that like there's 100 different talking points that kind of makes, let's say, an individual. I might disagree with 50, but then there might be 50 that I agree with. Or maybe it just adds to me and my understanding of like, okay, there's people that exist that think like this. Why do they think like this, right? And then that gets related because like a 12th house moon also there's that desire to be in touch with the collective unconscious and with kind of the zeitgeist of the generation and just like the people living right now, right? So, the more you're able to do that, the better. And just navigating the currents, and that's why I think like having the Earth and the 12th house moon is interesting because it's like solid, but then these just like I don't know. It can be a gift and a curse because it definitely makes them like very very intuitive. A 12th house moon, but then sometimes there can be some feelings of like of kind of losing themselves, right? Losing their individuality. So that's why like 12th house placements are very good for being of service. Um, but it can be clairvoyant too, especially in Sag, because Sag is about the future, right? So you could be someone who could have like clairvoyant abilities or ability to really, really sense like what's coming. So yeah, it's like the gates for like the gates from this reality, other realities are more open to you, right? Um, so usually, yeah, people with this and you do have strong aspects, um, it can create like very amazing healing abilities, right? Someone who can have unconditional love and understanding of other people. Um, the thing with 12th house moon is like the potential for emotional isolation. Um, but with a fourth house Saturn ruling the chart, I think like yeah, the more that you're able to open up to people, the more that you're able to kind of speak your mind to people and just get past anything like and have that real solid foundation in your life that you can come back to, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a day-to-day routine or like different creative outlets, whatever it is, right? That's really huge. But then it also like, and I really want to talk in detail about this part of your chart. It's super important. There's that same osmosis effect with other people and other energy, right? That can make someone with the 12th house moon feel like things are too much, right? Um, and yeah, it's just like really being like kind of chameleon energy, right? But like there's the double-edged swords that I was saying, right? It's because it's like you can like really 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 like so it's like about learning energetic protection and being able to kind of like know what's yours and what's not yours. And as a healer, whether that's what you do or not, right? Um, being able to separate from like other people's like difficulties, like or other people's tough energy, because sometimes the 12th house moon person can like cling on to energies that aren't theirs, right? So yeah, it really gives you like these spiritual antennas, and also it brings up the theme of like just intuition and learning to trust that, right? Um, learning to trust those antennas and those feelings you have. Because sometimes people who have those, they kind of shut them down early in life. Um, so yeah, interesting. But yeah, there's just so much with the 12th house moon. Like it can bring up like anything 12th house like the moon, like it can bring up like very unconscious phobias and fears from past lives. And um there can be issues with abandonment or just like a fear of abandonment, even if it's like abandoning the self. So, a lot of times people with that can be very, very like hermity, right? And they'll need like long periods of time where they're just like separate from other people. Um, and I've noticed that like sometimes people with that can feel like they don't want to get close to people because of the fear of losing them. right? So a lot of times it's echoed. So with the mother relationship, it is not badly affected. That's what's interesting. You only have Saturn. I mean, you have Moon square Mars, but you have trine Saturn, sextile Uranus, conjunct Pluto. So yeah, I mean, I mean, the conjunction of Pluto and this Mars square, it is that definitely really important to do inner work because with Mars square Moon in such a position, um, what's unconscious can sometimes like take over. Um, and there can be like these really impulsive actions that you don't know where they come from, and they can be somewhat self-sabotaging. So really, really being present and really being kind of slow and not rushing through things is really, really important. So it's like I always say that like there's the thing that happens, it hits us, and we either react unconsciously based on our instinct, or we take it in. We have the neutral mind, and we're able to sort of decipher more like how we want to react to it, right? That's the goal. Because when people just have that stuff happen to them, have something happen to them, and then they just react, that's just like that's not the goal at all of a 12th house moon with Pluto. It's about transforming these karmic unconscious patterns, right? So yeah. Um so yeah, like once again, like it a lot of times like there is like fears related to the mother or the childhood in some way. So like the whole thing with like abandonment, it would be really based on your experience with the mother figure or like with the nurturing figure. Sometimes like abandonment can be a subjective thing, and it can be like it can be like non-physical. Um, it can be like just not feeling like the emotional needs were met early on, or like that the nurturing needed was given. Um, and yeah, just different fears that can kind of come up in childhood with the fourth house Saturn, right? Um, and like having like a mood, like kind of like the energy of the 12th house moon, like I said, it can with Pluto on it, it can make intense moods come up, and like sometimes some parents like aren't able to really deal with that, right? Or understand it. So yeah. But once again, like it's just like the imagination, your imagination is just so like it's endless, and it's just yeah, the more you can kind of like get in contact with that, and then like use it to create in some type of way, like that's just such an amazing combination in your chart. So unique. Yeah. What else with 12th house moon? Because 12th house is also sleep. Yeah, I just think like yeah, your meditations, your dreams and all that like could be like prophetic. So definitely I would pay attention to those. And it really, yeah, it has to do with emotional control, as I said, so but part of that is like being able to like let go of the need for control over people, over situations. Because when one grows up, I'm not saying this is you, but some people with these types of placements, when they grow up and they feel like they didn't have control, they can then become like obsessed with keeping it, right? So yeah, it can make it hard to control emotions for sure, 12th house moon. And sometimes when the person isn't headed in that righteous direction that's like really like in line with their higher karma, they can feel like they're just kind of going in circles. And it's like the difference between like being a pebble that's being pushed away by around by the tides of the sea and the different like waves, and if it's calm one day it's calm, and then if it's like a hurricane, like just like a big storm, then just getting pushed around. The difference between being like that or being like a solid boulder that is immovable, right? Um. So yeah, I think like there's a sense that it's an interesting part of your chart, the fact that there's no water, but then like a 12th house moon usually is someone who can be quite, yeah, quite like fragile in the sense of like they can be hurt kind of easily at times, and then there's that tendency to want to withdraw, right? Um, but yeah, so good, like in like the healing potential and the yeah, all that stuff is just like I almost feel like when I see that in a chart, it might not be, it could be who knows at what age, right? But like I had someone recently who I was talking to, and she was like, no one's ever brought up the idea of me as a healer, but I've always kind of felt it unconsciously. And um, she had like a similar thing with Pluto. She had Saturn on her moon also, but yeah, it was interesting. And just like Pluto with a Sag moon is just like so it really, like I said, it mixes this like depth with this like big picture perspective and optimism. So like a lot of like the tendencies that a 12th house moon could have to slip into like self-victimization and um just like depression and all that, like the Sag moon, it's a usually adds like a more of a happy-go-lucky feel to it, like potential to see the bright side and see the big picture. So I think it's a really interesting combo. Let's see. Yeah, so with romantic stuff, of course, like a Sag moon is gonna need freedom to be themselves, and also in 12th house, they're gonna need freedom to have alone time. Um, Venus, in Taurus and all that energy in Taurus and in the Earth, it is related. It's gonna make one really want like a level of dependability with their partners. Like people who like partners who make them feel like they can really trust them on a deep level, um, who are consistent, who their approach, I guess, to relationships is more foundational. It's more like about building structures that are gonna metaphoric structures that are gonna stand the test of time, as opposed to just like messing around. But then also, you know, having like Juno, which represents like your ideal mate, right? In Gemini, like, and that's like long term, like something that could really work on a big long term level. In Gemini in the sixth, that adds a dynamic of like wanting someone that can be like your best friend and have like a lot of like good conversation, intellectual connection. Someone, and it kind of goes with the Sag Moon, need to have kind of like an adventure buddy, someone that you can like see eye to eye with, even if you guys have some differences, like overall, like big picture belief of the world and truth is not so clashing that like, you know what I mean? Because that's gonna be really important to any Sag moon. And yeah, I think like as someone who gives you your alone time, and but yeah, who you're also able to like have fun and be goofy with, because that fifth house energy also, it can't just be like overly serious. And I think that that's part of the danger with a Mars and Virgo, is that sometimes the expectations on the self can be so high that then and that's your Black Moon Lilith also. So this is actually backing up what I'm about to say, is that if one with these placements doesn't, um like if they're too critical of themselves and too perfectionist in them, like with what they look for in themselves, they can project that externally and kind of like always be looking for this like perfect type of person that might not exist because no one's perfect. So yeah, just I think with Black Moon Lilith and Virgo, ninth house also, that relates to beliefs, right? So that's about not being too as I was saying earlier, stringent and too dogmatic with one's beliefs and trying to push them onto other people too much. Um, and yeah, I think also Black and Lilith and Virgo, yeah, it's just like yeah, just that demand um for perfection, pushing oneself too hard, putting too much energy in like work and stuff like that, right? And it goes exactly what I'm saying with what I was saying earlier. Like one is destined to fail if they're always raising the bar, raising to like impossible levels. Um, so yeah. And I think in the ninth house also it creates a level of rebelliousness. Um, Someone who has to watch out for blaming society for different things in their own life. Um, it's gonna create someone who, is gonna have very different philosophies to the consensus. Um, so it goes back to that Sag Moon need. Like every Sag Moon I talk to at some point goes through this like period I can totally relate where it's like, let's say like they learn a lot about something like astrology or something deep, right? That like they're like, holy shit, I found a gold mine, right? They then have people around, let's say it's their siblings or let's say it's their parents or friends they grew up with that they're like, yo, like look what I learned, like and they get really into explaining it. And then when that person isn't willing to kind of like go on board with them and have that same enthusiasm, there can be this level of real frustration, right? Because it's like the Sagittarian spends so much time trying to figure reality out. And when people come that don't have that same zest for discovering truth, and your Mars in the ninth house, also it's gonna make one really want to go out in the world, want to travel, want to see different cultures, want to see different ways of thinking and all this and that and find truth. It's no doubt that you are gifted in that way. And sometimes it's difficult with a lot of earth. Sometimes a lot of people love earth, they don't see what differentiates them from other people. Um, because there's such an observant energy with Mars and Virgo, sometimes it observes so much that it can kind of push them out of that flow state of just going. But then also it helps them be, quite analytical and realistic, right? So yeah, it's just about like learning like having that go-getter attitude as I've been saying, but like also knowing that there's times that that where one needs to relax and one needs to kind of like gain inspiration and kind of quit what they're doing and just like escape that societal conditioning of just do, right? Because like I can even say for me as an astrologer, like I need periods where I'm working less, where I'm just living, where I'm just existing. And then I can come back to astrology and have a new perspective of it. But I think if I was always doing, how the fuck would I be able to reflect and like come to different conclusions, and compound the things I'm learning into new ideas, right? So yeah, that's something I definitely see. Also, I think with like the Virgo energy, like when one's able to really acknowledge their shortcomings, it can be really massive. Um, Even having a sense of humor about them, and just knowing that a lot of times like that earth energy is here and it sees other people. I don't know, it's here, but it sees itself is here and other people is here. So it kind of like sometimes can like be too hard on itself and think other people are for some reason like higher. Hey, Esme, you want to help me? Look who just joined. Esme, you want to help? Been a minute. Okay, I'll show. I need to pet her for a little bit, get her relaxed, and then I'll show her your chart. Say hi, Esme. Okay, the special one has joined, so we'll see what she says in a minute, what she looks at in your chart when I hold her up. Hopefully you do your work, Esme. Please. You gonna help your dad today? She's on a weight loss journey. It's not really going as planned. She's a food addict, like actually. Sometimes when Esma's with me during readings, I just get like downloads, I swear. Well, I do for sure when she looks at the chart. Look at her. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I have this article I always like to go to. Not always, but because I feel like it did such a good job. It broke down all the Black Moon Lilith's different fears, and for Virgo, it's fear of failure. Um, so it says they can come across as very hard on people and very criticizing. They can make you feel inadequate and flawed, but in reality, that's how they feel about themselves. So it's literally saying what I just said. They work a lot to compensate the feelings of not being enough and trying to prove the world they're not as flawed as they think they are. Forgiveness is a big theme, and there's a need to practice forgiving other people and forgiving themselves for not being as perfect as they think they need to be. Cut yourself some slack. So yeah, that really goes with what I was saying. Because like you're like as a Cap rising, um, you're going to have that faith of ambition, of self-reliance, of responsibility. I always say if there's three people in an interview and they all are exactly equally qualified, but one's a Capricorn or Saturn rising, that person's gonna get the job, you know? And yeah, it kind of creates like a plotter, like someone who's like, yeah, really strategic, but like there's that need to not take life too seriously. And I think that Taurus suns are so good. How, Esme, you're ruining my shirt. You big baby. Like some like just like what like I was saying earlier with Earth in general, it's like learn like the skill of not taking life too seriously, which trust me, like I struggle with that sometimes too. Um, but like it definitely makes someone have that real work ethic, that perseverance, that follow through, right? But yeah, yeah. So Chiron is also it's in it's your pain, your suffering, it's in the 10th, it's in Libra. So that Chiron and Libra oftentimes feel some level of pain in their relationships. And sometimes it comes with like issues with like the parent of the opposite sex early in life, not always. Um, but ultimately, Chiron in the 10th in Libra can create a professional counselor, someone like who's working with clients who um is here who has very healing relationships, but like maybe that they suffer in them early on. Because also to add to all the love stuff, you have Uranus square Sun, Venus, and Mercury, right? So that's really, really important for you. Uranus square Sun, it's the rebel. Like that person with so that's just really, really interesting being a Taurus is that that kind of pushes you more towards that change, right? And people, I know a ton of people who have this, and they all have a super special purpose that's very unique. Like it's carved individually for them, right? So sometimes it doesn't come till later in life, and sometimes they have to go through different stages to get there. But yeah. Also, they don't like people telling them what to do usually, um, which can be good because in this world, a lot of people are telling them to do stupid shit. So they really want to like, feel like, okay, what's the real usage of this or that? Now, Venus square Uranus is very interesting because in relationships, it adds that element of really like it can make someone like feel like the grass is greener on the other side type energy. And it kind of goes with the Juno and Gemini, which could even be like an alternative type of relationship, right? Um, but I feel like it can make someone sometimes bored a little bit fast, which can come also from having too high expectations of people, which isn't bad. I'm not saying like being picky. If people are picky and they have their own tastes, and I don't think people should settle. But I think that what I've noticed with that placement, sometimes people don't give others enough of a chance. Um, and it can be really difficult. And this is interesting because like Sag Moon, all about freedom, right? Venus in Taurus, more about stability, practicality. Also very much about like touch and the senses and sex and all that stuff. But square Uranus, um, like if they feel like they're kind of like getting pushed in too much, they can feel like the relationship is like a prison and they want to escape, right? Like so like anyone else's like claim onto you might be seen as like an obstacle to your freedom and to your individuality. Stop, Esme. So it's really about learning to compromise, right? And I think like having space in relationships where you don't like fully like just like merge with the other person is very important. Yeah, Esme, you're so cute right now. You're always cute, but extra cute. Yeah, so that's just another aspect. Now, the fact that it's also square Uranus is super interesting. Or that Mercury, excuse me, is square Uranus. So people with that's like can be like a very genius energy. Once again, that could be another one like that can be like so many ideas, but almost like there can be like difficulty like to ground the ideas, um, to really get them all down, really capture them all. But like you have like a very unique approach to like very like inventive mind. But also there's a high chance that you were not properly understood and maybe still aren't by a lot of people from that complex nature. And having thoughts that differ in a way of thinking and seeing the world that differs from most people. Of course, this makes you ultra creative. This gives you the ability to navigate life in a very unique way and see the world in a very unique way. But at the same time, it can kind of yeah, it goes back to that idea earlier about the need to slow down the mind, right? And how the biggest barrier can be the what I call the monkey mind, right? Like of just like thought, analyze, right? But yeah, it just makes the brain really quick. I think any Mercury Uranus aspect is like a great sign of intelligence. Um, but this could be with the Mercury retrograde a very, very unique and type of creative intelligence. But yeah, it can give like a very brilliant mind. But like the thing is the square is that the ideas can be quite eccentric and sometimes like upset others or lead to like difficulties in different relationships. And a lot of times it can be around listening and just like kind of like ADHD type energy, but like I said, it is in Taurus, but like being like such a dreamer and then like having all these streams of consciousness, then it can just be hard to just like kind of ground that energy. But it needs to be grounded. Um, and yeah, there can be like, yeah, difficulty with concentration, being easily distracted, yeah, tons of things, right? But yeah, I think it definitely, with what I was saying earlier, one of the themes of like being able to see um both sides of the story, I think this definitely helps you. And a lot of times people with this will like really challenge other people's ideas too. Um, so yeah, it can make someone kind of argumentative, and definitely like not afraid of like controversy or like disagreeing or with people and stuff like that. Um, yeah, so it all has to do with self-control and kind of like, yeah, grounding the energy. Um, what else about that one? It definitely lends itself also to like meeting, to really having like a wide variety of like meetings with different people from different cultural, philosophical backgrounds. So like that really is good, nice for the Sag Moon. But then also it can make one kind of like change trends often. Um, kind of like, yeah, I've noticed that like that people can have like difficulty maintaining long-term friendships with that sometimes, but then Tauruses are so good at that though. See, this is astrology, right? It's like there's all these different things. Like humans are so complex, right? So two things can exist that might seem like they go against each other um at the same time. But how is it? But I think like also one other thing about that is it can lead to some anxiety, some like nervousness. Um, but like it's just a mind that like has trouble quieting itself down, but always needs like stimulation, right? So, and usually very funny too, usually very good sense of humor, very quick, witty. Um, it's a good placement for like comedians or stuff like, place like anything that relies on wit. Man, what are you doing? But yeah, it just speaks further to your creativity. The fact that it's a retrograde Mercury, it's just the lens through which you see the world is very, very interesting. Um, and very, very inventive. And let's see if Esme, she's running away. Let's see if she'll look at your chart. Okay, Esme, do your thing where you look at the most important part of the chart. Esme. Oh my God, look at this disobedient. Esme, look. Okay, you looked at the North Node in Virgo. Thank you. Now run away. Actually, stay, Esme, stay. Hey. Thank you, Esme. You really did good. I couldn't tell if she was looking at the Mars or the North Node, but she's always right. So what we're talking about here, she just re-emphasizing the importance of consistency, and of really, really having that self-belief, not being too perfectionist, but like having that day-to-day routine, that life routine that just works for you. It just works for you. Um, and you can always fall back on it. And then also like the nature of like, yeah, not being too like having the balance of the masculine doing, feminine just being, existing, feeling, going deeper, all that. So yeah. Um, Also Chiron in the 10th house. Sometimes there's a need to like get past different fears related to like the public life. Ooh, 1 second. Okay. So yeah, there can be like different fears around like career and putting oneself out there. Um so it could, but it also Carlton House could be someone who's meant to be, you know, a professional healer, right? But sometimes they can, yeah, they can have like feel like feelings of inadequacy in the outer world. And sometimes feeling like your true worth is not being recognized. So it just takes that really, you know, like really finding that, you that very individualistic, like that thing, you know, or just like really lots of trial and error with your 0 degree ascendant, right? But then like a 29-degree Neptune, it's just like that's the mystic, you know, that's the master mystic, right? Um, so yeah, just like really delving into your past like talents, you know, really finding those and I keep saying like relying on the intuition, you know, and strengthening it like a knife sword. Because like a lot of times current tests they're very unsure of their career path, but yeah, it's just like getting past that. Um and yeah, just like 12th house Pluto also it's just like that need to kind of explore the unconscious, you know, like the deep like like I said earlier, like the gates of the unknown, right? And yeah. Okay. Yeah, and then even your palace is in Aquarius, so you can really like grasp ideas very quickly and and yeah, really see kind of like yeah, very, very inventive and good. It's good for like having like creative ideas when it comes to kind of like making money, like entrepreneurship. And you know, midheaven and Virgo with your Mars, I mean that's a go-getter in career, you know? So yeah. Um Sirius and Pisces is interesting in the third. That usually makes someone that's quite good at praising other people. Good for like someone who like really like wants to kind of go out in the world and get information about data, like wants to really like, you know, get a lot of the data that they can then apply to their grand philosophies. Um, and then like what they find, you know, like it's kind of like your second moon, but not even close as important, obviously. But in Pisces, that's just like feeling nurtured and cared for when you do feel that oneness with the world, right? That 12th house oneness. And you're able to really, really like relieve others of their deep spiritual emotional pain through, you know, your compassion and the different skills that you have, right? Talents. And you have vested also on your South Node. So yeah, maybe, you know, it could be someone who's yeah, really trying to be of service to humanity and um you know, working best when you feel like you are experiencing that oneness through your work and making the world a better place also, right? Yeah. So like a lot of times people with that, they can feel overwhelmed by work unless they really feel like that work is really pushing them towards service um and something deeper. And yeah, just that whole fifth house energy, power fortune and vertex adding to the sun, Venus and Mercury, it just speaks to your creativity and just speaks to like like I said, it could be children being a very, very important part of your life. But also inner child, right? And sometimes people it's like their kids, um, or future kids or whatever, like help them like find that inner child energy. So that's really important. And you know, part of fortune and you oh wow, we have the same part of fortune. That's crazy. It's a point in your chart that represents like you at your best, you and your flow, like where you really flow. And the vertex is like a very faded point. And the fact that they're together, it's just showing the importance of you like fifth house is also about universal love. It's just about yeah, like being in your inner child, right? So the more that you can be, the more that you can take creative risks, the more that you can trying different things, right? Um, and expand yourself creatively. That's just like, the more the better. And vertex also by sign, there can be like lots of fated people that are Tauruses or have Venus in their chart a lot that come to you in times of need. And also I think of it in lots of ways, like it's kind of like your ascendant in relationships. So you can, yeah, just like it's with, your Venus, right? So that speaks to like your relationships being very, very fated. And it's through like love and like learning to like love yourself and value yourself in the highest way. Um, that's like a very deep karmic there's a deep karmic impetus there. And yeah, like vertex Venus people, like they never have to doubt, um they never have to doubt their like their, like I said, their relationships are going to be very fated when they come, all that stuff. So yeah. Yeah. Let me pull some of these up. And your Saturn return will probably be in what, 2026, around then. Yeah. By the way, like most people add the follow up and the current astrology. Well, most get like the you have the follow. I, yeah, you have the follow already. But why does it wait? Hold on, I'm so confused. Why is it telling me? I'm so confused as to why. I forget the promotions I do and stuff, but did you get the reading and follow up for why did I write those 320? Or were you the one? I think you're the one that sent me a cash app. I forget. Either way, I wrote it down, so that's gotta be the way it is. But I think you were the one, weren't you? Sent me the follow up cash app. But yeah, most people want to add the current astrology to that. So instead of just like the hour that we already have, which we're going over this and comparing your lived experience, because everything in astrology, it's the chart meets your free will, right? Two people can have the exact same charts, but completely different lives. Why? Because how they choose to use their free will, right? Different placements, work in different ways. But anyways, yeah, I think like another big thing is just, yeah, overcoming any kind of vagueness in your self-expression, right? And really finding your truest form of self-expression, which, that requires alone time and a life that's less a more alternative type of life, a more like, yeah, like just yeah, really, really leaning into individualism is so important. So yeah, there's a lot going on in your chart. A lot. So let's see here. How far is it from? That's a degree from Antares. Midheaven. Ooh, look at you. Okay, so this is crazy. So there's three asteroids in astrology that are linked with like witches, like witch Hecate, Lilith, and Circe. You have Lilith right on the midheaven, same like one degree away. So that makes you someone, midheaven is your public persona, your dharma, like who could be meant to do some type of spiritual work, whether like whatever it is. Lilith I just associate with that, so to have that like as like with your Mars too, just like it's also like I link it to feminism in the sense, okay, maybe that's the wrong word, but just the like women who are not like backing down in this like very like patriarchal world. um it creates very, very strong willed divine feminine woman not to be messed with. And they can really go out in the world and do, be very, very strong and do great things. Let's do Taurus. Interesting. So you have Urania, which is the asteroid of astrology on your vertex. So whether that means you're meant to be an astrologer, whether that means you're meant to learn astrology, which by the way, I do one-on-one lessons if you're ever interested, or whether that means that you're meant to benefit from your understanding of your own astrology, I'm not here to tell you that. I'm here to tell you that your doorway to higher awareness, astrology plays a role in it. Pretty cool. I could see you marrying someone wealthy. Um, you have one of the best wealth stars on your descendant, which could also speak to you being, wealth in like a very karmic fated sense, right? It is a degree and a half away, so it's not smack on there, but it's still there. Let's see. Okay, what's that? I think the sun moon midpoint is an interesting point in astrology because it's the midpoint between the sun and your moon, right? It's the point of the chart where it's like the middle. Some astrologers like work a lot with midpoints, right? It's kind of like the compromise point between that Sag Pluto moon and that Taurus Venus Mercury sun. So it really highlights like this sign that is most visible when it comes to like you trying to like really compromise between what you really want and then what really isn't for you. Um, so it kind of shows us like how we're like motivated in our day-to-day life. So sorry, I have allergies still. Um, so in Aquarius, right, pretty close to Jupiter, it's definitely someone who's motivated by finding friends or groups, even if they're on the internet, Aquarius internet, um, that are really linked to them and their individual selves. There's that need for like, variety and change and freedom and all that, to really feel alive. Um, so and friends, like friends can be family, right? And then also just that need to be unique, that need to be independent, different than the rest. Um, and that's the compromise between that Taurus and that Sag, right? It's like, um, definitely like you add into that, yeah, just the freedom, right? But then like the Taurus, because you have so much energy in there, is gonna really give that groundedness. It's a really strong chart. Um, and it doesn't mean that someone has to like be completely independent and not get married or not have close relationships. It's just like in the relationships, they should feel like they're not losing themselves in their sense of individuality. And yeah, just more creative energy, poet energy. I feel like there's like a certain attractiveness that you have that people can sense. Like and they probably like it's like kind of like hard to explain. It's like unconscious in a way. Um, but like it's something very different than what most people like how do I say it? It's like something that like it's hard for people to pin down, but it keeps people very alert. Um, yeah, like Sappho there, definitely that's like kind of a sexy placement. Um, and yeah. So yeah, I was gonna talk about Antares. Antares is like so on the moon, that's like the underworld, Antares is like it's the royal star, it's like the king, queen of the underworld, right? So to have it on your moon, um it's like Antares is like very like it sees everything. It's very like there's like kind of a primal energy um active. Um, but with the moon, it will create someone, that it's very good for the occult, good for sports too, and anything like physical. And a lot of times there can be very, very good for like meeting high friends in high places, um, that can help them in their life. And yeah, it's really good for business. Um, but like it's important to have to not be self-destructive, to not like do things that kind of yeah, like there's great potential for power, for wealth, for all that stuff. Um, but yeah, like just making sure like the ego doesn't take over. So yeah, very, very important. All right, well that's it. That's everything. Let me just look at this one more time, scan this. So yeah, we'll have a lot to talk about to make sure most people have to watch these a few times. Your chart is a very complex one. There's a lot going on. Oh, actually, there's two things I didn't mention. They just popped back at me. Sun square Neptune and Mercury square Neptune. Um, so Sun square Neptune that adds so that re-emphasizes what I was talking about when it comes to identity crisis. And the need of service and creativity and being in touch with the zeitgeist, with the unconscious of the collective, and just spirituality, your own spiritual self. That's like how you like really, really understand yourself on a deeper level. But sometimes Sun Square Neptune people can feel kind of like boundaries can be difficult, and they can really have trouble seeing themselves in a solid way. Now with Mercury and the fact that you already have Mercury square um, Uranus, that creates someone who is deeply, 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 deeply like just with all your placements, super psychic. Like but sometimes there can be issues with like discrimination, using the powers of discrimination. The mind's very abstract, very spiritual, but you have to have alone time. So this is like emphasizing your need for alone time even more, because you can lose your sense of identity and your sense of self um if you're too around other people. And you can like with Mercury and Neptune, Mercury square Neptune, um, there can just be like a confusion and a paranoia, and it's really important to get feedback from other people, because you might misunderstand how other people are coming across to you or what they mean by certain things. It is like a placement of magicians. Like it's very, very, very um good for understanding the occult, the esoteric, and things that are less obvious to other people. But when it comes to like day-to-day stuff, it can be a little bit tricky sometimes. But you do have all the Taurus, which would help with all that stuff. But yeah, there can be sometimes like with your thoughts, with like the way you express yourself, a sort yeah, kind of like vague, um, like very, very metaphoric, abstract, and then it to you it makes sense. To someone like me, it makes sense, but then it can leave other people kind of confused, right? Um, So when you have alone time, you're able to separate from other people's energy because like you can take on their thoughts by osmosis without even knowing it. And then before you know it, if someone's depressed or someone has like a negative energy, you take it on. So that's really, really important to know about as well. And quick scan, I think I went over everything. Yeah, and then like last one, Mercury opposite Chiron, that is just that makes sense because when you have like a mind like you do that's shown in your chart, people are going to misunderstand you. And it can, early on especially, it can make someone feel like they're less intelligent than they really are. Or even like if it's not that, like that there's something wrong with their thought process. There's something, um, like, yeah, like just like, just with all these amazing placements, that are so different and unique, that can happen. So also it's about facing your pain and then you're able to, and getting past the thought that other people are better than you and so forth. And then you're able to move into the highest energy of your chart. But anyways, we can talk about all these in the follow-up, so let me know. Don't stop. What are you writing? What are you writing? What are you writing? I'm done. I'm too tired. Yeah, so that's essentially all. So we will talk. Let me know if you want to add the current. I'd be down to do it for you for usually it's like 400 or something, but I'd be down to do it for 250. It's like the lowest I ever will go, but I would love to have that. We'd have a 3-hour session, first hour follow up next to current astrology. I do everything transits, progressions, progress lunar cycle, solar return chart, everything. So, um, yeah, let me know. And thank you so much. I have no idea how long this is because this is for my clock on, but probably pretty damn long. And I'll talk to you later. Ciao.